Thank you for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. We welcome you to the program. As always, the next 2 hours, we have the major conversations happening here in Nigeria, and we encourage you to be a part of it by simply tweeting at us this morning if you're on X, at News Central TV. And of course, leave a comment on all other social media platforms. If you're also watching us on YouTube, of course, you could also comment in the YouTube comment section. I am Osaogie Ogbawa.
And I'm Joe Hansen. Well, just in case you're wondering, it's not a great Thursday, if I have to put it that way. It's just by coincidence. I mean, it happens to all broadcasters, possibly once in a while, without having known or, forethought. It just happens that you might be, twinning or wearing the same color one way or the other. Yeah, it does. So I know what you're thinking at home. Try and leave that thought alone. Let's focus on what we're here to do this morning. Anyway, some of the biggest stories coming out from Nigeria. Well, it seems to have been a dry Wednesday slash a dry, Thursday morning. But then again, I think one of the biggest stories that came out that I saw and would like to talk about as we start our tea conversations this morning has got to do with the current Minister of Aviation, who happens to have been doing a lot of work, traversing, traveling, and moving around different states, checking out the airports, checking out the tarmac, checking out every single thing, and then, of course, stated that it would cost a whole lot to repair these airports in different states, especially in the country. But a statement he made kind of like likened him to the previous Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, where he did say that very soon Nigeria will start, making its own airplane. That statement, it sounds familiar, right? Yes, it does. And that's exactly what he said. If you recall, years ago during the Muhammadu Buhari administration, Hadi Sirika had also said the same thing, that Nigeria would also start manufacturing or putting together its own airplane. And it's very, very close. But we never saw it coming. Yes, I mean, we never even saw one, talk about the wing, talk about even the tires. Nothing happened. After that statement was made, Nigeria never even saw its own national carrier come to life. We also saw that, mimic that quick game that was put together, Ethiopia, Nigeria Connect, and the whole shambolic and fraud that was indeed given to Nigerians, serving them on a platter of gold just few moments before Buhari decided to leave his office after his tenure actually came to an end. But then again, we have another aviation minister. Is he really towing the same line? These are the thoughts everyone is actually talking about, and everyone is sharing that. You have come again. You're now saying we're going to very soon make our own airplane, manufacture, put together, and so on. But then again, you've not really addressed the major situation, which simply is we need to ensure that the national carrier is back. Well, that's one of the biggest stories that I did see, and it got me thinking, like, I hope we're not going down the same path again, Osaroge.
It's not, for me, it's not just about, the path that we might be, towing, pretty much same thing with Hadi Sirika. I feel like everybody who read that, read it, as some comic relief yesterday. And I think even the minister himself, the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, I'm sure even when he said it, he must have gone back to his car and laughed at that statement. And another thing is, the timing for Nigerian politicians soon, for the average person is maybe 2 weeks, in 6 months, in 1 year, but the Nigerian politician soon might be in 25 years, might be in 30 years. Because if we look at what we currently have on ground and the infrastructure we have on ground, our manufacturing sector generally, it's not the kind of place that you expect will be able to produce an airplane. The Boeing and Airbus's and the likes, compare, those companies and the operational costs and the infrastructure that they have put together to enable them create, to build those airplanes. Nigeria is not, 2% close to it at all. We've not even been able to produce cars. We've not been able to even produce electric vehicles, successfully. I know Innocent is putting together his own electric vehicles, I believe. But there's many levels that you need to get to before you can now say, okay, now we're producing planes. And besides even production of airplanes itself, there's still so much there's still so much, of like a desk-girl attitude concerning the way Nigeria functions, that, if they tell you that this, airplane was produced by a Nigerian producer, or by the Nigerian government, I'm sure a lot of people will be skeptical about flying that airplane. I'm certain, because there's too many lapses here and there with, with our with the way that we do things in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people wouldn't want to fly those airplanes. But that's even when we get there. But for now, I don't even think that he was serious about it. Let's fix electricity first. Let's be able to generate 50,000 megawatts of electricity. Let our manufacturing sector be able to be, fully self-sustainable and not be running into, the loss that they're currently, experiencing. Let, these companies in Nigeria stop, let them be able to at least survive, to some extent before we start, dreaming as high as, making airplanes. I remember that as somebody had also said that, we're maybe also going to be flying spaceships to the moon at some point, or going out of space, But
yeah.
Those are all just dreams. There are some basic things that our country needs to put in check first. And anybody who is trying to, jump many steps ahead, to airplane production is really just, joking. The most basic things that Nigeria wants is not to produce airplanes at this point. We want to be safe. We want to have a thriving economy. We want to not be in so much debt. We know in the news about 142 trillion naira debt that Nigeria is currently under. We want to not be under so much debt. We want to have a thriving economy. Nigerians want to be safe. Nigerians want their government to value life more, so that when 147 people die in Edo State, we don't just move on like it was just any other day at the office. These things must be checked. And when, like I spoke about yesterday, 98 people die in a fire disaster from a fallen petrol tanker, the Nigerian side doesn't just move on. We demand that that's almost 100 people, and the steps are taken to ensure that it never repeats itself again. Because as it stands, I would not be able to beat my chest and say that in the next 1 year, if you have a tanker, disaster, that you would not have the same number of casualties. 100 people will not once again also perish. And just to point out once again that it's not just about the Nigerian person and the greed and desperation and hunger. It's also about the Nigerian government's ability to also protect its citizens when they, choose to put themselves at harm's way. It is the infrastructure that is available to ensure that these things don't happen. It is the emergency, services that are available. It is the police. It is the fire service. And we don't have that reality, no matter what part of the country that you are. Even if you live in the rich parts of, even in Lagos, you live in Ikoyi, there are certain, facilities that are just not available to you as a Nigerian. No matter how rich you are, you cannot pay to have those things available. You don't have a level of health care that you should have. You don't have a level of security or fire, fighting service. And we need to even have them first before we even now start getting to the point where we can now start to rate their performance and say how long will it take for a police vehicle to get to a crisis situation? How long will it take for fire trucks to get here? If you remember when the Ikoyi building collapse happened, I remember that I spoke with one of the heads of a government agency here in Lagos. I want to make a mistake, but I remember I spoke to him and I was asking him how long it took for their trucks and for the equipment to get to Ikoyi that day. And what he told me that day was that there was the trucks, heavy duty equipment were somewhere in Agege or something. I can't remember what the story was. And before they were able to move them there, it took a while. There was traffic, this and that, and that's not a functioning society. If there's an emergency, that's not a functioning society. So before we get to that stage, we're talking about building airplanes.
Let's the ones that
let's do the basics first.
And talking of the ones that are key, right before we go to the headlines, doctors are about to go on strike. That's the latest story. And the doctors are saying that the FCT, I'm talking about the FCT, in the FCT as well, and they're saying that they are indeed, they're calling on the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, not forgetting to the Senate, especially calling on Akpabio, that if they know that what they're doing is good, then they should start using the hospitals in the FCT. I mean, that was apt. That was spot on for me, because they're not just going on strike. They said that the FCT minister is doing a very good job, but the only difference is he's busy fixing roads, but they are not being paid the allowances. However, they also made that very salient point that if you think that we don't matter, and you feel that, okay, you know what, the healthcare system is doing well, why don't you just stop going abroad to receive treatments and, start using the hospitals here? Well, these conversations are ones that we would not stop talking about and highlighting, especially when they come to the fore. Our job here is to bring it to you, dissect it, and also see the critical angles and how it impacts your lives, either positively or negatively.
Absolutely.
Well, talking about that, let's bring to you our top stories for today on a Thursday morning. Let's see some of the things that we would be talking about here on Breakfast Central. Today on Breakfast Central, Nigeria joins BRICS as partner country. We'll talk about the implications and how it also affects you. EFCC mum as officer allegedly absconds with $30,000. No statement yet. Lawmakers accuse Regional Development Ministry of project bias. We'll have that package report. And INEC sets February 21, 2026 for FCT Area Council election. And don't forget as well, we would be diving into the front pages to see what they are saying, and you can be part of it today. Make sure you call in. But let's bring to you breakfast headlines.
And now on breakfast headlines, Beatrice Ekweremadu, the wife of former Deputy Senate President Senator Ike Ekweremadu, has been released from a UK prison and returned to Nigeria. According to sources, she arrived in the country on Tuesday and is currently in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Ms. Ekweremadu was sentenced to 6 years in prison, not 5 as initially reported, for her involvement in organ trafficking, along with her husband and Dr. Obinna Ubeta. Her release has sparked jubilation in her family's community in Edo State. And to health matters now, we understand that between 30th of December 2024 and the 12th of January 2025, a total of 143 cases of Lassa fever have been confirmed across 7 states and 32 local government areas in the country. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which confirmed the figures, also reported 22 deaths, representing 15.4% fatality rate. According to the NCDC, the deaths occurred in Ondo, Edo, Bauchi, Taraba, Ebonyi, and Gombe states. The NCDC added that it has activated the National Lassa Fever Multi-Partner, Multi-Sectoral Incident Management System to coordinate responses and activities at all levels. A coalition of civil society organizations are resisting the federal government's plan to resume oil exploration and production. Besides a lack of proper consultation with leaders at Ogoni community, the civil society group says the government must address the long-standing grievances over environmental degradation before it can begin to drill oil again. Ogoni land in the oil-rich Niger Delta region was at the heart of an acute air pollution due to unregulated oil exploration by local and international oil and gas giants like Shell. The resulting environmental degradation left vast lands and seas in Ogoni drenched in crude oil, while robbing farmers and fishermen of their livelihoods. In 2011, the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, said it could take up to 25 to 30 years to fully clean up Ogoni, and recommended an initial investment of $1 billion just for the first 5 years. Till date, a substantial part of the UNEP report has not been implemented. Now, civil society groups want the government to suspend all oil exploration plans until their concerns over the environment are addressed. They also demanded a $1 trillion fund for cleanup of Ogoni land. Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission says that February the 21st, 2026 is the tentative date for the chairmanship and councillorship elections in the 6 area councils of the Federal Capital Territory. The chairman of the commission, while meeting with the leaders of registered political parties in the country, also urged them to commence preparations for the conduct of party primaries for the upcoming Anambra State governorship off-cycle elections.
The last area council election in the FCT was held on 12th February 2022. By the effluxion of time, the tenure of the current chairman and councillors ends next year. Consequently, the commission has approved that the 2026 area council election in the FCT will hold on Saturday, 21st February 2020.
And that's all on Breakfast headlines. Let's now move back to Breakfast Central and get to you our top stories. I am Osalgie Ogbawa.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's go straight to a very interesting story that we'd love to share with you very, very quickly. Well, federal lawmakers in Nigeria's National Assembly have actually accused the nation's Ministry of Regional Development of lopsidedness in the implementation of its 2024 budget. Well, lawmakers during the ministry's budget defense session in Abuja say that the ministry violated Nigeria's federal character obligations by concentrating over 70% of its developmental projects in Edo State, the home state of the minister. Well, our correspondent Idong Joseph has more in this report.
The session commenced with the presentation of the 2024 budget performance of the Ministry of Regional Development before lawmakers. The minister informed the lawmakers that a total of 20 billion naira was allocated in 2024. However, only 2 billion naira was provided for regional intervention. He says that the amounts earmarked to address the developmental needs of 5 regional development commissions was inadequate.
By the time we took over, the first assignment I gave to the infrastructural developments to go around to give us details of ongoing projects. But it's quite amazing if I let you know that even projects that had a balance of about 5 billion, 2 billion to complete, by the time they brought proposal, they run into 50 billion.
Some lawmakers raised concerns over details of the 2024 budget performance, alleging that Edo State, the home state of the minister, got the lion's share in the project executed.
If you are from Edo, what is the federal character? What does the federal character say about these budgets, especially as it relates to all the regions that make up the Niger Delta affairs?
Almost about 70% of this budget 2025 is created in Edo State.
1 minute. Court order, please. Point of order.
Mr. Chairman, the essence of it is that we cannot be here elected by the constituents and speak on this budget.
Following this allegation of bias against the ministry, the committee then resolved into a closed-door session to interface more over the concerns.
There must be equal and proportionate distribution of projects across the various zones.
The creation of the Ministry of Regional Development is a recognition that development must not be restricted to one region alone.
The Ministry of Regional Development, formerly the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, proposed a sum of 28.9 billion naira, comprising 24 billion naira for capital projects, 2.7 billion naira for personnel costs, and 1.6 billion naira for recurrent expenditures for the 2025 fiscal year. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Well, you can say that there's a lot to talk about, especially in that report. And we'll continue to follow that story very, very closely to see if there would be any form or an update concerning what has been discussed. But away from that, let's go straight into the nitty-gritty. Let's look at what we would be talking about this very moment. Well, last week, if you recall, Nigeria officially joined BRICS as a partner country, marking a significant milestone in economic and diplomatic relations. BRICS, the intergovernmental organization consisting of 5 major emerging economies, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, invited 6 emerging market group countries, including Nigeria, to join the bloc in August 2023. Now you have Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates officially joining on January 1st, 2024, while Saudi Arabia is still considering its membership.
Now, as a partner country, Nigeria is expected to engage with BRICS nations on various initiatives, including promoting trade and investment, food security, infrastructural development, and climate change adaptation. According to the special advisor to the President on Public Communication and Media, Daniel Bwala, Nigeria has already begun reaping benefits from its partnership with BRICS nations. For instance, collaborations with Russia have improved Nigeria's agricultural systems and food security programs. We, of course, would expand on this discussion, but, the broad conversations around this, are mostly, ignoring some of these benefits that the presidency is pointing out, the partnerships, and the investment, possible investments in agricultural system and food security programs like Daniel Bwala is speaking about now, and mostly all, just pointing out the foreign policy issues that it might bring to Nigeria, looking at the countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which of course make up BRICS, and Nigeria's alignment with the West, and of course, the fears really are, does Nigeria really want to get into an alliance with these countries rather, that have been labeled, in a certain way, authoritarian, and being led by dictators, and which other words or terms come to mind. And the questions really, have been, does Nigeria need to get into these types of alliances? But the presidency is saying it's not necessarily a military, alliance or anything of that sort, and it doesn't also ruin our relationship with the West, doesn't ruin our relationship, our business and foreign relationship with America and France and any other country. It's simply just what, Nigeria can also benefit from building relationships with other countries, which is, a pretty, interesting perspective, and I think it's also, important that Nigeria doesn't shut its doors completely to the possible support and partnerships that it can gain from other countries, and political alliances and foreign affairs alliances, should not be, sealed with concrete, and we should be able to also establish alliances. But does anybody really, and of course, there's always going to be questions as to if truly Nigeria is benefiting anything from Russia or from China. The Chinese have been criticized, for their involvement in other parts of Africa, and, the way and manner with which they build the alliances with other African countries, with Rwanda, for example, So these are some of the things that we're going to explore a little bit further in this particular conversation. Joe?
Absolutely. And we'll also take a look at the fact that BRICS is seriously pushing for one key thing in which its members are happily ensuring that these alliances work. And what they're really pushing for, which is one of the key aspects, is for financial sovereignty. This is actually one thing that they're pushing for, to see how they can actually be exempted from being overly dependent on the dollar. A lot of persons have said that, especially countries, state head, have said that the reliance on a dollar could seem to have been a state of or a thought that many countries would love to evolve from, would like to leave. But BRICS is, in a way, trying to encourage countries to actually be dependent on their own currency, talking about national currencies. We're also looking at the aspect that, if you recall, when our guest does join us, we would also talk about this. I think he was part of the persons we spoke to last year when BRICS had come out to say that they're also going to look at also having the BRICS currency. Many have thought about what it would look like. It will also help in trade and investment, whether we like it or not, so that the over-dependence on the United States dollar, or dollar being the major currency, would not be there anymore. Because just like one of the Iranian representatives had spoken, he had said that if you look at the fact that you could also depend on your own currency without having to trade with the American dollar, or the dollars in quotes, if you put it that way, it gives you some form of confidence that you could still do business, improve the GDP of your country, still have FDIs, especially with partner countries who are on the BRICS bloc, and then see the aspects of ensuring that you can actually grow your own commonwealth and have internal trade going. And if you look at it, I think it's a positive one. But on the other hand, is this going to be a threat to the Americans? I'm interested in this conversation because the Americans do have a new president in Donald Trump, who has said he's going forward, he's going to focus on America, America, America. Many have talked about the oil, that he's going to actually ensure that when it comes to oil and gas, put it that way, he's also going to ensure that America benefits the most. So how is BRICS going to impact heavily on the new president in America? Not forgetting too that we know what happened, or what has been happening between America and China, and it happens to be that China is also part of what we're about to see here unfold. But Nigeria joining is a different ball game. Is this going to also help President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to achieve his goals, his targets, especially what he put forth concerning the fiscal year, where he's gone in to ensure that Nigeria's economy finally gains strength and is finally stabilized to a point where Nigerians can heave a sigh of relief and would be able to say, yes, we think the man that was voted for and got into office has started putting things in the right place. So there's a whole lot of conversation surrounding BRICS, a whole lot of conversation surrounding its impact with the United States of America and the current president, a conversation also surrounding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's goal to ensure that his mandates are indeed met, working with different ministers. How would BRICS also impact on different sectors of the economy? So these are conversations I'm looking forward to have as well.
Yeah, I think there's the point, about the new administration or the new government in America. I think it's also important, to see how hard BRICS itself would also, try to expand. I know that in the last 4 years, the United States, under President Joe Biden, I dare say that it completely lost itself. And that is one of the reasons that BRICS, came together and decided that it was time for them to make the moves that they're making, and to kill this over-reliance on the U.S. dollar, and of course, they did speak about, their own currency, which a lot of countries buy into. They may not say it openly, but a lot of them buy into the idea that the over-reliance on the U.S. dollar has now become, it's been weaponized by the United States. And so Joe Biden and his foreign policy, and everybody who ran foreign policy under Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken and every other person, completely lost the plot in the last 4 years. So I don't know if Donald Trump will be able to calm the nerves, in these other countries. Will they be, still very, very much interested in creating their own currency and breaking away from the US dollar and seeing other countries who will be willing to join them? It's now left for Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, and every other person who's going to be part of his foreign policy team to decide how this will turn out. But we have global affairs analyst Collins Wake joining us. Good morning, and thanks for your time this morning.
Very good morning to you.
Good to see you. I want to start with, the concerns, the most popular concerns that people have when they hear about Nigeria and its association with, with BRICS. Normally, it shouldn't be a problem if Nigeria wants to, have alliances with other countries and with other, intercontinental groups. But this one just seems to have some bad air around it. So can you clarify, what are the major controversies and, and fears, and if you believe that these are legitimate concerns the Nigerians should have?
Well, for a start, I believe that the reason it took Nigeria this long to join the BRICS is simply because Nigeria has had to, consider the pros and cons, and then determine finally that joining BRICS is in the best interest, the best national interest of Nigeria. You will recall that they had been invited, quite a long time from now, but Nigeria had continued to hesitate. Well, maybe for a number of factors. I mean, at the time we had a president, that wasn't very quick in decision taking. Now, we have a president with a completely different disposition, pragmatic, considers things and decides fast. So I want to believe that Nigeria has thought about it and felt that indeed this is a union that, for want of a better word, that this is a union that, Nigeria ought to be in. And so, from the side of Nigeria, well, I want to believe that this has been very well considered. Now, for those, who are expressing some fears, well, the fear may be born out of, not quite knowing what BRICS is all about. And then, outside Nigeria, I mean, the external fears coming might, actually be fears on the other side who actually feel that BRICS is going to be a very, very disruptive thing for the global, global West, global North, as a matter of fact, the Western economies who fear that it might, bring some disruptions to the financial institutions, that, a new world order is being, rearranged, actually championed by both China and, countries like, not Ukraine, countries like Russia. So, yeah, the fears are there, and it depends on which quarter it is coming from. But as far as Nigeria is concerned, it shouldn't be a justified fear.
Okay. One of the key highlights for BRICS, especially when they had their meeting last year in October, especially sitting with the interested leaders, one of the conversations was on de-dollarization. We've seen that a lot of world trade engaged between countries has to do with the use of dollar. As a matter of fact, I think it was in 2003, if I'm right, where it also mentioned that a lot of the oil trade that was done, it was 100% done in dollars. Now, BRICS is looking at its own currency. Nigeria is also looking at having business relationships with as much country as possible so as to be able to stabilize the economy. Do you think that the BRICS currency is one that would indeed bring succor to a country like Nigeria and also the partner countries that are equally involved, looking at the fact that they are pushing for de-dollarization?
Well, there are basically two broad ways to look at this. I do believe that although the de-dollarization has not started working in the way and manner that BRICS conceive it to work, there are indications already that amongst member nations of BRICS, that there are already some, bilateral arrangements, bilateral agreements that actually bypass dollar in their foreign trade. A situation where, for instance, Brazil and China are already trading in their local currencies. Brazil and Russia, the same thing, and a host of other countries. So it is already happening in small measures. Now, coming to Nigeria, I do believe that it is in Nigeria's best interest to weigh its relationship with different countries and see what those relationships bring to the table. Now, when the current president took over office, he made no secret about the fact that he believes that issues on tariffs and trade, especially international institutions, that the way they are couched is such that, it is not favorable to the global South, including Nigeria, and that there is a very, very urgent need to, rejig, such relationships. I do believe that one of the, deciding factors for him for signing off on, BRICS partnership is the fact that, BRICS offers for Nigeria and its foreign trade ambition the sort of things that he wants to see. That is not to say that, Nigeria cuts off a link with, the Western powers. No, that will not happen, but it is a matter of which, region, which group offers Nigeria the most competitive, advantage. So imagine a situation where Nigeria could trade with China using Naira on the side of Nigeria and using Yuan on the side of China. That would be marvelous, and that is essentially what this fear of de-dollarization is all about.
How much better do you think Nigeria can also get into these partnerships with China, for example, and maybe also Russia? Nigeria has a lot of value that it can get from Russia, even if, yes, Russia has way more gas than we do. But, what picture can you paint as to what possible relationships, or, benefits we can get from stronger, business ties with China and with Russia, and maybe also, Brazil in this picture? China has a lot of partnerships with other countries on the continent. In Rwanda, I know that they have a very strong relationship with Rwanda. So what can we possibly gain if we expand on this BRICS relationship?
Well, at the heart of this relationship is actually trade, international trade, but also all sorts of other support that the global South, the emerging economies believe is in their best interest, to be part of it. So that wouldn't be different for China. China-Nigeria trade relations. It will only just enhance it. Like the example I gave regarding the ease in trading with local currencies of the two partner countries involved. That in itself is already a very, very huge, improvement, or will be a huge improvement for Nigeria. Because imagine a situation where, Nigerian business people importing from China, or Nigeria comes to a point where it begins to export to China, that you don't have to, scramble around for, dollars to, power your business, your import or export, business. That you can do that right with your Naira. That will make life a lot easier, and that will improve, of course, the volume of business transaction between Nigeria and the country involved, and based on your question, in this case, China. So there are quite a lot to gain. And you see, the Western power that are actually concerned, it is for a reason that they are concerned. They are concerned because, these international, trade arrangements tilt to their favor, and so they are leaving Africa and the rest of the emerging economies high and dry. And so they are watching and seeing BRICS actually bringing a disruption to that advantage that they have been enjoying for centuries. And so, they have reasons to have not just fear, but palpable fear.
Yeah, but is there also concern? If you listen to a lot of the criticism from foreign countries coming into Africa and setting up these partnerships, it might seem like a win situation for the African nations, but looking deeper into it, a lot of people have criticized these countries for coming over here, giving you funding that, mostly just keeps you in a loop that you have to keep paying back that funding, and then, setting up agreements with which they take raw materials from your country, give you minimal benefits, for those raw materials, and of course, then gain a larger percentage of that business relationship. So is that also a thing that, we should be worried about? Nigeria's manufacturing sector is struggling severely, and that is because, we have these partnerships that take away raw materials from Nigeria, ship them abroad, and then we buy goods and, items from those countries that are already processed, because we can't manufacture them here in Nigeria. And it's one of the things that the structural adjustment program was criticized, heavily for. So, do you have those same concerns, when we're having these conversations about partnering with these countries and us not being on the losing end in the long run?
Those concerns have been there. They will always be there, with or without BRICS. I believe that it is, actually a different kettle of fish. That issue, the issue of, actually taking more out of Africa than they are putting in, it is a discussion, it is a conversation that should be divorced from BRICS. Yes, it is happening. And so the onus is now on the African countries, Nigeria in this particular case, to determine for itself what is in its best national and security interest. Now, yes, obviously, some of those deals have got to be renegotiated. Nigeria should be in a position to actually have, raw materials processed in Nigeria through its industrialization plan. And so, finished product or half-finished products made in Nigeria, creating jobs, keeping the economy, active, they should be encouraged within Nigeria rather than taking the raw materials away. So yes, that is an ongoing conversation, and Nigeria has got to be much more intentional than it is now in making it happen. I do not believe that, BRICS will either make it happen or make it not to happen. That's a separate conversation altogether.
All right. Well, there's a lot to talk about concerning BRICS. We barely even touched on its political impact in these partner countries. We also understand that BRICS is heavily pushing for technology in terms of partnerships, infrastructure. And the one that's most interesting is the fact that BRICS is also looking at ensuring that other organizations like the IMF, World Bank, and so on, get to understand what its goals are and also try to shape in with the countries involved. But I guess we're going to leave these conversations to when we have you back again. And hopefully we would speak more on BRICS and also get another guest to join us from one of these partner countries. Thank you so much, Collins Weke, Global Affairs Analyst, for speaking with us this Thursday morning.
Thank you so very much for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Well, let's move on to another story that's indeed making the rounds, and it's got to do with the one that's been, on all socials everywhere, the papers. Well, in the last couple of days, by the way, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has been in public eye following an operation in Ifite, Oka, Anambra State, where it unfortunately lost one of its officers to a gunshot, and we did talk about it here. The details of this sad incident has gotten many Nigerians talking about the processes and work ethics of the EFCC, as many Nigerians seem to express distrust for the Commission and its account of the incident. Well, in response to the public outrage, the Commission says it is concerned greatly about what it called callous, inhuman, and outrageous narratives being circulated on social media on the whys and wherefores of the fatal accident.
However, the EFCC seemed to be in another internal scandal as an officer in charge of Kaduna Zonal Office exhibit room has allegedly absconded with over $30,000 and other valuable exhibits. The Daily Nigerian reports that 10 officers of the EFCC were arrested for theft of gold bars worth over 1 billion naira, as well as over $180,000. And joining us to discuss the seeming public distrust in EFCC and the alleged internal corruption is legal practitioner Towo Oseroja. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Morning, and Happy New Year. You're welcome
Same to you. Happy New Year. It's late January, but yes, Happy New Year.
Yeah, this is the first, this is the first time in this year.
That's true. We have, wow. That means January is fast, right? Do we agree?
It'll be pretty
No,
fast.
to some it's fast. Like to me, it's fast, but to some, January is like 60 days in a year, in a month. So, why that's why I'm not surprised when he said it's a far January, and I'm saying Happy New Year.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's the timing for January is it's relative, you know, depending on if you are the employer or the employee. If you are paying salaries or you are receiving salaries.
As an employee, it's 60 days.
Yes.
It's 60 days that makes
As an
up
employer,
January.
it's 2 weeks.
But as an employer, it's like 21 days.
Anyway, let's get into the conversation. I want to first of all start with let's start with Oka. You know, the controversy surrounding the incident in Oka on the 17th, I believe, of January. Many Nigerians reacted to it. The FCC, of course, put out its own statement about 48 hours later, you know, and of course have, shared their disappointment with the way that Nigerians reacted to the death of their officer. But if you follow the story, what are your views as to what exactly occurred on that day and how the EFCC has handled it so far?
Well, let me first of all start by when an institution is operated with when their mode of operation is uncertain, obviously the people they tend to protect becomes the enemy of that institution. If you look at it, you discovered that sometimes last year the commission issued a memo, or should I say a communique, that tend to stop their officers for carrying out such mode and a manner of operation, which I think maybe for a reason best known to the chairman there or the head of the commission, that they've not acquired the requisite training or the manner in which they carry out such an operation is not too professional. But that is that. Then two, it's also sad that in the course of line of duty, the commission also lost an individual. Not only an individual, that person happens to be a member of a family and happens to be a breadwinner and happens to be someone's father or son and all those stuff. So these are things put together. But if you look at it carefully, and I was a bit concerned when I now read the statement coming from EFCC, that you will now see the lacuna coming from their mood and ways of operation. If you look at the statement carefully, you discover that some of the allegations or some of the reason for the raid, it goes beyond internet fraud, and it also goes beyond the jurisdiction of the EFCC. Because if you say people are alleged to be ritual, people are alleged to be terrorists and all those stuff, there should be a means of intelligence sharing with sister agency. There should be a means of intelligence sharing with sister agency. When there are issues of kidnapping involved, you should know that such raid comes with damages that may either affect the officers or affect the people they intend to enforce that arrest. So the truth of the matter is, one, to what extent or to what are the modus operandi EFCC put in place in carrying out that raid? What is the extent of their intelligence gathering? Could that raid be avoided in one way or the other if things are done differently? Could that raid be avoided if intelligence sharing was done between sister agencies? We have tactical team in the Nigerian police. The DSS are good in such kind of operations. even with, because I know if they say they gathered intelligence, the intelligence should have told them that the person or the people they are targeting are armed. So these are so many things we need to look at. And it's a lesson for both, though it's a bitter lesson for both the commission and also a lesson for Nigeria as a whole when they react to issues of that nature. Remember, we are in a delicate state in the country whereby kidnappings are rampant, killings are rampant. So anybody now who want to do extra, want to take extra measure to what? To protect his or herself. So these are so many things, and this is not the first time that such modus operandi of the EFCC has been complained about. This is not the first time. We've seen video clips, we've seen so many things. And I think the EFCC needs to look at their mode of operation. They ought to be one of the most smart, color, intelligent agency. That is something they should look at. They ought not to be involved in issue of violence or conflict that would have resulted to that level. We have forces who are trained in that manner. They ought to be more intelligent and more smart when it comes to issue of this nature.
All right, let's look at the aspect of public trust. And in line with this recent story that some of its members have been allegedly caught stealing and taking items in the line of duty. Do you think that there would be any form of trust anymore that would come from some aspects, especially when they are told to carry out it? I mean, you also know that you're aware that they've asked for investigations, and they've also called in some top Nigerians to report to their offices because they were said to have laundered money. They were said to have, taken some monies that did not belong to them but belonged to their companies. How can we juxtapose these two? An anti-graft agency fighting, cases of money laundering and so on, while its own members are on the other side doing the same thing. How can this build public trust? And tell us, what does this really look like in the eyes of the law?
Let me first of all reiterate, and let me first of all state this clearly. I want to ask Nigeria, how has been the history of past EFCC chairman? What is the history? How are they removed? What? Some of them, they were, okay, the immediate past EFCC chairman, you could see the scandal surrounding the EFCC chairman. But you could also see that if not for the current administration, let's look at it this way. It was the EFCC that came out and said, well, our officers have done this. So that means there is a kind of recleaning of the system. And that alone should earn the trust of Nigeria. And let's also look at it from this perspective that has it ever been recorded, apart from the EFCC chairman that are removed in one allegation or the other? It has never been recorded that their officers have been arrested, some of them have been sacked, some of them are undergoing trial. In every society and in every institution, we always have the bad eggs out of it. But the most important thing is just that we should outweigh the benefit of the EFCC above what it is now. How many are their staff? How many? I think they should have more than 1,000 staff. And if we are saying that out of 1,000, we're able to, or they've been able to purge maybe, let's say, even 100 or less than 100, it's a kudos that the remaining 900 and something staff, they can serve Nigeria with dignity and integrity. And we should also be aware that in the course of it, we have seen EFCC officers or law enforcement officers that have rejected or they are refused to compromise. So we should look at it from this perspective. This should not be a news, because if heads have been alleged to have been involved in corrupt practice of an institution that ought to fight corruption, so the followers who at this point in time are in the spotlight should not in any way deviate Nigerians from trusting the EFCC. We have the good eggs, we have the bad eggs, and in every society, and even in the most righteous religious gathering. So the most important thing is that how are they purging themselves of these people or of this process of dirty eggs? So that is the most important thing, and I think Nigerians should encourage them in doing that. And you should also know that people will capitalize on this to see that, okay, they bring down the reputation and the effort made by the EFCC to fight corruption in Nigeria.
Yeah. I mean, just for for clarity, the EFCC itself, I had to look through their Twitter page. They themselves didn't post anything concerning this officer that allegedly stole $30,000. Any of all the other corruption claims. It's Nigerian newspapers. I think the Guardian, the Daily Nigerian, and other newspapers that shared that story. So they haven't even been able to share it with the public. That they are claiming.
I think.
Maybe you're talking about the previous one.
The previous one.
In that regard, they didn't deny it. They didn't deny it, and we should also be aware that let's look at it in the history. Just like I told you, the chairman of the EFCC, including the pioneer chairman, you could see how he was removed. You could see the after Waziri. You named them in one way or the other. They were removed unceremoniously. I think it's one of the commissions is his formation that the chairman has never, or the head of the commission has never been happily retired, or a tenure has elapsed for the purpose of what you serve with dignity and integrity.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is just that for the newspaper to have brought such an information, somebody from the commission would have linked such an information. And for the fact of the formation of the commission, they've not been such reports. So kudos should be given to them on that.
Yeah. If you were to speak with the EFCC this morning, what are the key questions that you would ask concerning the Anambra incident? I know you've highlighted the banning of nighttime raids. But, I also have, and not just me, a lot of people also have problems with the standard operating procedure generally with which the EFCC carries out its, activities. The press release that they put out, yesterday, I believe, saying that they had arrested 37 people, from in the same raid, and that they have been, they arrested and that they will be charged to court after investigation. So there's no clarity that the EFCC had done its thorough investigation, and these people were, then sought out, from, their homes, and then they are going straight to court. What they repeatedly say is that they will be going to court after investigation. There's a possibility that some of these people that are picked up in these raids may not even be internet fraudsters as they describe them. And also, when they pick up random, anybody that they pick up, and they put it in their press statement, they simply always just say, what they found were laptops. And it almost sounds like criminalizing the ownership of a laptop in Nigeria as long as you're a youth. And so if you were to speak with the EFCC chairman or the spokesperson, what are the key questions you would ask concerning the incident in Awka?
The key question is, first of all, ask the chairman, because sometimes some of us, when we saw the way the EFCC are going about their operation, and the aims and objective of the EFCC is technically defeated. If you find that, or if you had to speak with Obasanjo, that under his tenure that the EFCC was created, you discovered that Obasanjo will be disappointed with the way and manner the EFCC is going, because basically, if you see 90% of the EFCC celebrated EFCC conviction, in quotes, 90% of them are this internet fraudster. And if you look at them, majority of them are coerced into plea bargaining. Coerced in the sense that the mood and manner of interrogation, the mood and manner of soliciting information, you discover that it is zero. Now, the question I'm going to, or whatever I'm going to ask the EFCC chairman is that, can he in any way sit back and learn from the sister agency, ICPC? I'll give a clear example for that, because at a point we're thinking, because the EFCC is being operated by police officers, that is why the modus operandi is quite far different from, is not different from the police. But we have a lawyer who is already heading the commission. Now, the question is, what are the source of their intelligence? What are the source of intelligence? That is one. Then two, how did they get the source of intelligence? Then two, what are the things put in place to avert issues of this nature? Because if intelligence will say these are internet fraudster, intelligence will also tell you that these people are armed or the person is armed. Then 3, what are the ways, how do they approach the suspect? I can tell you categorically that raid or warrant of arrest or search warrant can be executed at any given time. But the way and manner it is executed will determine. Sometimes if you see, there was a video clip that goes about, you cannot really identify the difference between skit makers and the Economic and Financial Crime Commission again. It's really appalling. And a commission that is set up to be an intelligent hub for financial crime, against financial crime, cannot be differentiated from the main police. So sometimes I'm thinking that the mode and operation of the EFCC is equivalent to the Nigerian police. And these are things need to stop. Then 3, they should try and tell the officers, the operative, to be more civil rather than being a gallant or rather than being aggressive and gallant to people that comes within and around them. Because it's as a result of stories they've heard, the aggression that people will react to. So these are things the EFCC chairman need to put in place. These are things, and outside that, as they castigate the public or as the public is looking at them, they should look into that particular operation. What led to the operation? Where is the information from? Who authorized the operation? What are the equipment, or who are the intelligence? There's the how will I put it now? The safeguarding method put in place to see that both the suspect and the officers are safe in such kind of operation. Though it's surprising for you to see that they inform the police, but is it possible for the police to have infected such an arrest and hand over them to EFCC? These are things they should also look at. They should try and collaborate with sister agency in such kind of regard. It's so sad.
All right. So sad. I bet we would come back to talk about the EFCC again. And we're still waiting for a statement from the EFCC concerning this recent allegation of its members. And don't forget, too, that some of the EFCC members, or you'd say officers, were apprehended and they were called fake just a few days ago. Especially, we've seen this happen many times, where some officers who claim to be EFCC officers are indeed apprehended or caught. But thank you so much for your time. I'm sure when we come back to discuss this again, we would have heard from the EFCC when they put out another statement, just like they did that of Oka. Thanks for your time, and thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Well, it's been a very, very interesting first hour, no doubt. We've talked about the EFCC. We've looked at other stories too. But let's bring you a recap just in case you missed out. Nigeria joins BRICS as partner country. We did have this conversation. So many angles to look into this one. Also, EFCC officer allegedly absconds with $30,000 in other valuables. No word yet from the EFCC. Lawmakers accuse Regional Development Ministry of project bias. Like I said, this would be a very, very interesting and ongoing conversation, no doubt. Well, let's bring to you what's coming up next for the second hour here on Breakfast Central.
Coming up next, INEC sets February 21st, 2026 for FCT Area Council election. We'll also bring you the newspaper front pages, the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning, and also what Nigerians are saying. now it's time to find out what major stories are making headlines across Nigeria this morning. And joining us is public affairs analyst Dr. Olasunade Aziz. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
All right, we kick off with the daily independent newspapers this morning. It says here, NLC to federal government, stop 50% telecom tariff hike implementation. Asks Nigerians to prepare for action to compel hike reversal. CNG kicks, demands resignation of NCC boss and minister. I rejected contract variation of 32 billion naira from 90 billion naira, says Kayamo. Okay. Organ harvesting, UK authorities free Ekweremadu's wife from prison. Resign, stop demarketing PDP, national officer tell members. Oil market faces strong faces strong selling pressure as crude drops below $80 per barrel. Amotekun warns bandits, says Southwest not safe haven. And also FCT doctors begin strike over unpaid salaries. Collective investment schemes increased to over 3 trillion naira in 2024, says the SEC. I think these are the major stories that we can take on the daily independent newspapers.
All right, let's go straight to the Punch newspaper this morning. And on the Punch, we have there on the front page, Kano, Niger Republic, that's Niger Republic, I beg your pardon, real project. This has been in the news, talking about different projects here and there. Communities tackle federal government over compensations for 3,252 owners. Project continues despite Nigeria and Niger tension. 5,531 persons dissatisfied with compensation. Enugu community celebrates Ekweremadu's wife's return from UK jail. Mass deportation, US targets churches, mosques, schools, hospitals. We did see that yesterday. The president said the ICE should actually take action, so there's no hiding place for anybody. Oil exploration, Mosop falls Tinubu's meeting monarchs, begin consultation. APC LP back INEC on by-elections, dismiss Falana's proposal. Troops close in on bandit leader Turji, kill commanders 24 militants. And also let's take a few more stories here on the Punch. Alafi Owade puts traditional rights on hold, returns to Canada. And we'll take one more. Group ask IG to probe controversial video on Mohbad's death. Well, these are some of the stories you would find on the front page of the Punch. And don't forget that very little one on the right corner. Tariff hike, NOC asks subscribers to prepare for Telcom's boycott. That's what I'm going to take on the Punch.
Yeah, all right. This Nigerian newspapers this morning, Labour spits fire over 50% telecoms tariff hike, says corporate cartels being prioritized above citizens' welfare. The hike must reflect on service delivery. UI students protest 82-day power outage. It also says here, Bill Turji's camps in disarray as the second-in-command on 24 hours are killed. Ekweremadu's wife returns to Nigeria after 3 years in prison. And also, Kayamo queries 532 billion naira variation for Abuja Airport second runway. These are the major stories that we can find. Okay, I think we can get straight to our guest this morning.
Sure.
And see your thought. I think the Labour reaction to the 50% telecoms tariff hike, it's pretty interesting. Maybe not also shocking, but many Nigerians have also reacted to it. Serap has also reacted to it and asked that it be reversed.
Well, to me, I think it's not out of place for Labour to actually play the role they are meant to play. The last time we had a price on the telecoms services was 2013. But be that as it may, should it just be 50%? Why not gradual? Why not 10? Why not 5? Why not 15? Why not 20? Gradually, I know for sure that the cost of operating, the cost of, running the business in Nigeria today is very astronomical, very unfriendly. Figures are not looking up. Inflation are hitting deep in all the business parameters and business indices. But be that as it may, to me, I think 50% on the high side. For Labour to actually say what they are saying, because workers, they are members, they are part and parcel of customer that actually patronize the telecommunication service provider. But again, I think, what are we paying for? Today, the service is very low, dismally low, the quality control. And I think before they actually, NCC should come up with that. I expected them to enter into some agreement that the quality will be improved. And of course, anyone found wanting will be severely dealt with. If all these are put in place, basically we can actually get value for our money. But in a situation where they are increasing the rate, the tariff, and the quality of service, the quality of output, the quality of their service is not really correspondingly increased at that rate, it will actually be a rip-off on the part of the consumer, you and I, and customer outside there. I think what government needs to do, there should be enforcement and quality control department of Nigerian Communication Commission to ensure that they demand for quality service to justify the increase.
It's a lot. It's a lot to talk about. I think this is like we always say, it's a developing story. It's an ongoing conversation because on the side of the telecom operators, they are, like you've rightly also agreed, they are losing by trying to run the business. Yeah. We did highlight some of the key areas. Even the minister also did. We talk about the aspects of the softwares that they have to continue to upgrade. Now we're talking about 3G, we moved to 4, and now we're looking at 5G. To deploy that would need a lot in terms of investment. But aside from that story, I'd like us to look at another one. UK authorities free Ekweremadu's wife. So she's back to the country. Celebration is in the air, and the Nigerians are starting to say, yes, it's about time to look up to the return of Ekweremadu himself, but first of all, celebrating his wife.
Is it about Ekweremadu and his wife that really matter?
But that's what we see in the papers.
Yes, I know. But we bring insanity. I know for sure that if that happened in Nigeria, it would be a different ballgame entirely. That they let him off the hook in UK after serving the convict and then the jail term. Well, I congratulate her for actually surviving the whatever. And as been stated in the newspaper, we're also expecting the husband to come out of the prison too, so that they can join the family and reunite and live a more fulfilled life. But the kill any point basically is British or Britain, they've actually communicated that in their own environment, justice is not, I'm not saying justice is actually being compromised there, but their standard is their standard. And whatever you do in there, he will go before the law of equity, must go with open hand. Not only open hand there, but even open mind. So over there, they've actually communicated that anybody want to do on illicit business, including harvesting the parts of fellow human beings, there are rules and regulations that actually guide that particular aspect of human life. That anybody can forsake, anything can happen to anybody, but there are certain rules and regulations that guide the medical practice to ensure that if I'm giving it to you, it shouldn't be at a cost. I shouldn't be dismembering myself, removing my part of body because I'm poor, because you want to take advantage of me. I think, as I said, message has actually been passed.
Do you think, sorry to bother, do you think the Nigerian government can learn something from this? Because what we see in the papers is basically brandishing the fact that she's back. There hasn't been a key highlight on some of the major communications, like what you just said now. There hasn't been any stance that, the British government has again showed that the law must prevail in instances like this, especially looking at the fact that this is somebody who was considered to be in power.
Well, is it the first time? We used to have there was a story of that governor in Delta State who also was subjected to that. He was jailed. And what does that mean? I think there should be a lesson drawn from there. I believe in judiciary, and I know for sure that nothing human that is perfect. We must have, if all these things are happening offshore, beyond our border, and justice actually seen to really take its course, is a lesson to all of us that nobody above the law. Nobody above the law. To every action, there will always be a reaction. And the essence of law is to bring in sanity, to bring in consistency, to bring in justice itself, to bring in fairness and equity, the way and manner we handle individual, the way and manner, so that at the end of the day, we will apply the same folk to different folk, wherever they come from, whichever power and level they are in the hierarchy of government. It's a message, and they've actually communicated that clearly in clear terms. I know a lot of political juggernauts, a lot of political class made some representation, including our former head of state, our president, President Olusegun Obasanjo. He made a representation that Ekuremadu has been a very responsive public officer. But be that as it may, to them, justice is justice. They cannot bend the rule. If they bend the rule for somebody today, obviously they have to bend the rule for another person. So for consistency, for justice and justice way of, getting things done, to ensure that there's a deterrent on other, to deter other from embarking if they have that desire to, go through such a route in future. So in other words, message has been passed, and of course, I congratulate the lady for serving out the term, and I also, with the husband, follow suit and come and join his family so that they can actually unite and then they live their normal life. Lesson has been actually taught, and lesson has been learned. The key learning here is nobody's above the law, regardless of where you are in the hierarchy of government.
Yeah. All right. The Daily Independent this morning says Amotekun warns bandits, says Southwest not safe haven.
When the issue of insecurity started in Northeast, many of us that actually look beyond ordinary know for sure that there will be a time when that place will become inhabitable to them. And the next thing is to find habitable way. And that's why I actually like the governor of Edo State, who raised alarm, and he raised it on top of his voice to the whole world. That even where he stay, within the axis where he stay, the terrorists are not too far away from it. And again, I must also sincerely appreciate and thank the late Ondo State Governor.
Rotimi Akeredolu.
Thank you, Ogbeni Akeredolu. You could see how he actually, a lot of investment interest he expressed, and profound interest, and fund he pumped into it. Today it's not only there, Ogun State or your state. So Amotekun is actually an arm of government, security apparatus, paramilitary, military apparatus, yes. Mm-hmm. Because you agree with me, police cannot cover everywhere. Army cannot cover everywhere. You know for sure that they're actually highly engaged in the northern part of the country. And I know for sure, and that's why the issue of state police is very germane. They should put politics apart, because people know their forest, they know their terrain, they know their axis, they know everywhere, and they will be able to adequately police individuals and different locations in case they have any strange movement, strange character, strange individual that may want to permit through their own environment. They should be able to. So, and I know for sure that the Southwest needs a coordinated approach, security approach. Our security network has to be well mapped out to ensure that the Southwest is not habitable, it's not conducive for all these abductors, all these terrorists, to actually have something to do in the Southwest part of the country.
Yeah. Do you also expect, more effort from the Nigerian government, the federal government?
Yes, of course.
At a time like this?
You see, the security is actually number one. If you look at Nigerian constitution, the government must provide adequate security for every living soul in the country. So with that, I also maybe... Has the
government failed?
You say?
Has the government failed?
Well, I won't say they have failed. Government is a continuum. And, as soon as they succumb certain area, you see these people passing through another area. So what I just want to say is they need to up the game, the present. And there's nothing wrong in actually Nigerian Air Force hovering around Southwest, with their helicopters to survey for surveillance. And of course, intelligence gathering also need to be improved on. Not only that, they also need to equip with weaponry, today weapon, not antiquated weapon. of all our military, all our apparatus, either paramilitary, that are by law allowed to carry firepower to make life unbearable to all these terrorists, wherever they may want to choose that they have one. Because you discover now that people are no longer free to move around. We have some people who cannot afford to go by air, they have to go by road. And going by road maybe during the night. And you know, night travel has become very dangerous in the recent time. And for Nigeria to be able to move free in line with the dictate, the letter, the spirit of Nigerian constitution, then Nigeria must be safe. If there's no safety, if there's no security, there can be investment. And if there's no investment, of course, multiplier effect, exponential negative effect on our economic indices will surely be the problem we are going to contend with.
Yeah. Do you think that the Tinubu administration, I mean, Amnesty International reported, about the incident that happened in Borno State on the 12th of January.
Okay.
They reported 147 people that were killed. It reported that they were, Amnesty International reported on the day that they were going to be buried. The Nigerian government didn't necessarily speak much about it. Our newspapers, didn't also really highlight it, but there's 147 Nigerians barely 2 weeks into 2025. Should the Tinubu administration see that as a stain on its can they accept that they failed Nigerians in that regard?
I'm not a security expert, but with my interaction and a lot of report and as an analyst, security matter is not something you say out every day. Because the people you're actually planning against must not know your tactics. They must not know your strategy. Because by the time you say everything out, before you know it. And that's why we are losing many people who are dying in the line of duty, while they're actually, fighting to secure people within the area where insecurity is an issue. I will not say they have failed. You see, actually, the role of analyst is not judgmental. We are to look at it from this side, that side, and leave the judgment to the public. In that regard, I think maybe the only appeal I can make to the government, they can go back to their drawing board. They need more effort in the area of intelligence gathering. They need vigilante, to really supply them information. So that at the end of the day, they'll be able to, we've been talking about Toji. Toji's son died, Toji close ally died, and what? Why not Toji himself, who has actually been tormenting, terrorizing the people in the Northeast? So my point there, my take over there is government should not really show mercy on these people. They should double their effort. They should encourage their military. They should also equip them with modern gadgets, weapon and weaponry to be able to do what? To be able to really curtail all these terrorists, so that at the end of the day, they can wipe them off the surface.
The challenge that I have is, if we live in a society where that type of very, very sad incident can happen, and the government of the day, both in Borno State and the federal government, feels no pressure on itself that it is its failure that led to the death of 147 Nigerians. It almost is under no, pressure to be better. And I'm not, saying that they are not doing anything or they're not doing well enough. I understand that the army is sacrificing itself. Soldiers are dying. They're giving their lives, for Nigerians, and I give them all the credit that they deserve.
Great.
But in Nigeria, if you look at the California fires, for example, the head of they point out all these things, and the head of the fire service in that state was heavily criticized. They were questioning whether she was even fit for the job and all of that, because the government understands its responsibility, and it doesn't. Governor Gavin Newsom was also heavily criticized because they understand their responsibility to the people. I understand Nigeria is very, very far back, but can our thinking at least be getting there? That if 147 Nigerians die, President Tinubu cannot just be, just act like it's just another day at the office. The Borno State governor cannot just still act like it's another day at work, because 147 people have died under your watch. It should be on your report card that under your watch, this is the number of people that died. You failed to protect. It is your responsibility to protect. You swore to protect. Our conversations in the news don't even include the fact that 147, I said it on Monday, the Punch newspaper was reporting on the 98 people that died in the tanker explosion in Niger State. Yeah. And it was just a tiny, if you don't even look closely at the Punch, you won't even see it. And that is because as Nigerians and the way that we treat our government, we do not even realize that government failed those 147 people. They say the government failed those 98 people that died. The government is not going to go into its next Federal Executive Council meeting now worried and panicking that the Nigerian people are telling them that they failed to protect 147 lives. And I don't know how we function like this as a country.
Maybe from my own angle, I may not look at it the way you are looking at it. 140 is a lot of life. I would say 140 multiplied by what they will have procreated if they are still alive, the role they will have played in the political space, the contribution they will have made to economy, and of course, being there too, they will also be there for many other people. Maybe what I would just say is to every situation, there must be a key learning. And government has a choice or two choices of making propaganda. They can be making noise without actually taking action. And they can be taking action without necessarily making noise. So it could be either way. It might, but I must sincerely thank this station along with the press across across Nigeria, because you are just like part of your responsibility. You are to entertain, you are to educate, you are to inform. And program of this nature and across the media, either social media, either print media, electronic media, and what have you, is to also inform the people and then inform the power. With what we are doing now, obviously. But to me, I'm not here as government spokesperson, neither am I here to possibly place blame on what have you. But I know they must have actually learned something out of that. And you could see that when this admission comes in, there's a lot of improvement on the Nigerian army and even the entire military architecture or security architecture of the nation. You could see they are talking to foreign country that can be of help to us in terms of acquisition of weapon and weaponry, training of our personnel, and what have you. It might not necessarily be something we are getting result now. But as you said, I could feel your pain, just the way people that have lost their beloved ones also, have the same pain. I could feel your pain. And in fact, one life is a life. 140 life is plenty of life. And I'm actually using this medium to appeal to government to double up their effort, to motivate the military. And at the same time, it's actually good surveillance. It's good. You could see how they are giving tough time to Toji in the Northeast. I know they will soon get to him as the target. People around him, his commandant, his son, and what have you, have actually been felled in the course of
and he's also released some of the captives.
Thank you, and also relieve and release some of the people they have actually held in captivity. Yeah. So in other words, at the end of the day, we should not really relent in talking to power, in talking to the government, to double their effort to ensure that they make life inhabitable, they make life difficult for people who are threat to fellow Nigerians.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Olasukade Aziz, for joining us. It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing your analysis with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the things that Nigerians are saying. Particularly, we're going to focus on reality and Nigeria's economy. The question is, how much can 70,000 Naira minimum wage do for you as a Nigerian? We'll let you think about that. When we come back, we'll take a look at it. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Well, today and this morning, we would be doing something quite unusual that we haven't done here on Breakfast Central. Well, this morning we'll be looking at the drawing board this morning. And our focus, like I rightly said before the break, we'll be taking a look at the salary of an average civil servant who actually works in any government parastatal. Now, you are aware that the minimum wage is 70,000 naira. I mean, we just put a little K there for you. And we'll be focusing on what 70,000 naira can do for a civil servant. Now, let's look at 7 areas, 7 aspects of living. The first one would be transportation. Let's focus on the 7. Let's stay on the 7 for now as we look at the 7. Transportation is the first one. The second one is food. And the third one is healthcare. Number 4 would be clothing. Let me see if I can go back. Yeah, there it is. The 5th one is shelter, accommodation. And then we'll also look at personal effects and, most importantly, savings. Now, take your time, join me, and let's go to the drawing board very quickly. Let's see what that can do for us. So let's focus on the first one. If we are actually looking at number 1, transportation, and there are very, clear signs that a lot of persons spend nothing more than 1,500 per day to go to work and also come back. And this is the reality versus the current economy that we have today. So if you spend 1,500 to go to work, multiply that by 5, and nothing more, you'll be spending a whole lot just to go to work and also come back, okay? If you put all of that together, you know how much that will be. So you can bring out your calculators, do that with me, and then you see how much you would spend in 5 days. Now multiply that 4 weeks. What would that give you? Well, if you're thinking about it very carefully, let's actually go straight to our calculators. I like to work with you very quickly. So 1,500 times 5 gives you 7,500 naira. Multiply that by 4 weeks. So let's see the calculation on the screen as well. So you're going to spend nothing less than about 7,500 in a week. And in total, you're spending 30,000 naira for just transportation. How much is the minimum wage again? 70,000 naira, right? So you do the math. 70 minus 30. How much do you have left? You have 40,000 naira left to spend. Now that's just for transportation. Transport, nothing more. Let's go to food, which is the second one, very quick. Remember, we're looking at 7 aspects. Food is the next one. Recently, it's been found out that if you're going to eat a meal, especially if you're at the office, you may be spending nothing less than about 2,000 naira. The mama put that we used to know, where you can get rice for like 100 naira, 200 naira, now sells for 300 for 1 spoon, up until 600 for 2 spoons. So give or take, you must eat in the morning when you get to work. You must also eat later on in the afternoon. You may be spending 2,000 naira a day just to eat. And that's just for food. So if we go back to our drawing board, if we say food, you should be looking at 2,000 naira, right? So 2,000 naira for food times, let's not say 5 days, let's say 7 days, because you have to eat all day, every week. And that gives you a total of how much? Well, let's put that calculation for you on the screen so you can see it as well. From my drawing board to the screen. So that gives you 14,000 naira. Now, 14,000 times 4 weeks. I'm going to join you again as you bring out your calculator. So 14,000 times 4, that gives you a total of 56,000 bucks. Our drawing board is starting to get full. You understand where I'm going? Okay. All right. So 56,000 naira. Now, if you minus 56,000 naira from 70,000 naira, how much would be left? Let's quickly move on very quickly and go to what's next as we go to another aspect. That is healthcare. This is very important. Now, healthcare, we do hear that in government hospitals, consultation fee just to see a doctor to check on you, do the basic checkups, has risen from 3,500 now to 5,000 naira. We're not talking about medications yet. As you see, we'll put a question mark there. So let's just say you're paying 20,000 naira for medications per month. That's if you don't have a very serious illness. So 20,000 naira is what we put there just to peg it in a month. We know it could be more. Malaria drugs are expensive. Now they go for about 6,500. But let's leave it at that. Let's go to the next one. Clothing. Clothing is another aspect of life. And all of this is based on your cap, which happens to be your minimum wage. So for clothing, which I'm also going to put on the screen, we're just going to put clothing, let's say clothing, let's also put 20,000 naira for clothing, okay? Haven't checked on healthcare, which will also put healthcare at 20,000 naira, all right? And there you have it, clothing 20,000. Don't forget, if you add these two, that's 40,000, minus 40,000 from 70,000. We've even not added the others, and you see what you're going to have. Now, what about shelter? In case you do not know, for those who actually live in Lagos, you would agree with me that the cost of living, especially for accommodation, has indeed skyrocketed. Landlords are increasing house rents like drinking water. So it pretty much seems like the landlords are telling you now that if you must live in my house, you have to pay extra. So a boys' quarter of a flat that used to go for a one room that used to go for possibly, let's say, 150,000 naira. I don't know if there's any in Lagos like that though, but it now goes for 300,000 naira. So it's like times 2 or times 1 of the bill. And you also have people who pay annually for rent. If you stay in a 2-bedroom flat, it used to go for 800 naira, 900 naira, but now it goes for about 1.7 million naira. But let's put the savings to it. Let's say you save 30,000 naira for shelter every month. That's what you save. If you want to say in a face me, I face you, we do hear some collect 30,000 naira now monthly. Multiply that by 12 and use your calculator. You'll be spending nothing less than 360,000 naira in a year. That's what you're spending. So look at that on the screen again as we put that on the screen for you to see. We've not even mentioned special personal effects and so on. So let's go to personal effects, which is number 6. Personal effects has to do with, you know, your basic, the things you need, your perfume, your accessories, and so on and so forth. You're just going to peg that at 40,000 naira. Well, you wonder why people, you know, these days don't buy roll-ons and, you know, antiperspirants, because it's now expensive as well. But let's peg that as well at 40,000 naira. Okay, so we've done that. Take a look at that. You see what the cost is saying. So having done that, let's go to the last one, the very last one, savings. How much can you save from 70,000 naira minimum wage? How much? Well, if you look there on the screen, we put 0.00 naira because it seems to be very impossible for you to save anything. Now, what's the total if you put all of these figures together, and how much is a Nigerian going to spend every month just to take care of himself? Let me run it quickly by you one more time. Transportation, you're looking at 30,000 naira monthly. Food, 56,000 naira. Healthcare, we pegged it at 20,000 naira. Clothing, 20,000 naira. Even though you'd agree with me, what can 20,000 naira get you in the market in terms of clothing? Not forgetting shelter, 30,000 naira if you're staying in a one-room apartment, what we usually call face me, I face you. You see it for 30,000 naira. You also have personal effects, the things you need to take care of yourself. Let's put it at 40,000 naira. And then savings, we have no figure for that. But what does it come to in total? Well, in total, if you have it on the screen as well, it's going to be 206,000 naira. That's what you need. As we go to the drawing board, that's what we're doing this morning. 206,000 naira is actually what you need to take care of yourself every month if you're a civil servant and if you are on a budget. Let me bring in Osarige here as we look at this very carefully. Don't forget that the minimum wage we're talking about here is actually 70,000 naira. Lagos State says it's going to pay 100,000 naira. So if I'm going to take away 100,000 naira from 206,000 naira, I'm going to have roughly 106,000 naira is what I'm going to spend monthly. Is this sustainable in today's economy? And it's mind-boggling, Osarige, looking at the numbers. That's just one person. Aha.
And that's why you see, you know, the number, there's an increasing number of children in traffic in Lagos these days, you know, cleaning windshields and looking for, you know, anything to eat.
Yeah.
When they gather, they are no longer in groups of 2 or 3. They're now in groups of, you know, 12 and 15 and 20 of them, you know, along the streets in Lagos. because home is no longer able to feed them. And so a lot of them then have to go out and fend for themselves. You know, the man who initially used to be able to survive and, you know, feed his family with this same 70,000 naira a month, you know, now has to make 200,000 to feed that same family, you know, just on the average. He needs to find other ways to make it work. You know, he needs to reduce his normal 2 meals a day that he used to eat, you know, to just once, you know, eat in the afternoon and go home. So there's just so much adjustment that has had to happen, and it's very, very difficult. A lot of things here you cannot deal without. The healthcare that you mentioned, that a person, I mean, maybe not every month to spend 20,000, but you know, every now and then, you know, you might need to, you know, pay for medication. What we now find is that people can no longer go to trusted medical pharmacies to buy medication. So they go to the market and meet the local, you know, those ones that are selling very likely fake medication. There's that mixture. They're the ones that are selling Panadol, paracetamol for you, but it's very likely chalk. Because that's what they can afford. They cannot go to a random pharmacy and buy medication, malaria medication as well, or any other thing. So it's just, it's crazy, you know, but it's people's reality, and it's just unfortunate.
That's fact. That's the fact, and that's what we've done this morning. We've looked at the drawing board. We will be doing this regularly to actually break down the situation of things that we are actually dealing with, especially in today's economy. So if you earn a minimum wage of 70,000 naira, I wish you had a bell. I would have, you know, possibly rang a bell for you to say you are trying, because this is every single thing you have to go through every single month, every single day. No wonder people do 001. They don't eat in the morning or afternoon, just at night, so they can meet up all of these expenses and more. There's more. We didn't add a lot here. If you have a girlfriend, if you have a babe somewhere, you have to also take care of her. And like Osarage also added...
That's luxury. She has to go fend for herself at this point.
Know. She needs to fend for herself, right? Girlfriends, you understand what the men are going through, right? Yeah, that's it. Anyway, that's all on Breakfast Central for today on a Thursday, and that's all on the drawing board. We had to go back to the drawing board. Hopefully, we'll clean it up. My name is Johansson. Thanks for watching, and hopefully, we'll be back again to see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. I am Osauge Ogmoa. See you tomorrow.